We are under a month away from the NFL trade deadline. It is November 4th. It's a Tuesday. It's actually election day, fun fact. 4 p.m. Eastern time is the deadline. You project that the Miami Dolphins are ultimately going to be sellers when we get closer to the trade deadline. And we've seen a bunch of trades this week. We saw the shocking trade that sent Greg Newsome to the Jaguars in return for Tyson Campbell. And you also saw some picks involved there. We saw Joe Flacco go from the Browns to the Bengals. We saw another trade, didn't we? There was three this week. There was Newsome, there was Campbell, there was Flacco, and there was a third. Oh, Adolphe Owe. We're playing him this Sunday in the Chargers game. He went from Baltimore to Los Angeles. So there are trades really starting to pick up before the deadline. And if the losing, which we expect it to continue in Miami, you will likely see them receive a lot of calls on some of their veterans, and we're going to talk about which ones make the most sense as trade candidates. But if the Dolphins do make a trade, we will break the news first on my Twitter/X handle as Nick_Roloff, just under 2,400 followers. Go give me a follow right now for up-to-the-minute Dolphins news and rumors, and any breaking news, we'll have you covered over there. The number one Dolphins trade candidate for the Dolphins, and I really do mean this is numero uno, it is Jaelan Phillips. He is the most likely trade candidate on this Dolphins roster without a second thought crossing my brain. And I know a lot of you might be disappointed with that because former first-round pick, played at the University of Miami, but the reason why I believe he is the most likely is one, he has only 1 year left on his deal. He is currently playing on his 5th-year option. Do the Dolphins plan on giving him a long-term contract extension before free agency or re-signing him in free agency to a long-term deal? Especially if you project having a new GM and head coach going in the next season. Well, they're not the regime that drafted Jaelan Phillips, making them more willing to move on from him. So you should probably get ahead of that and trade him since his value is relatively good. He's actually had a good season. He has been the Miami Dolphins' best pass rusher without a question through 5 games. He has the highest pass rush grade out of all the edges at 75.2. He has had 16 pressures. He finally got his first recorded sack this past week against Carolina, but he also has one of the highest pass rush win rates in the NFL. It's top 20. 17.7% amongst qualified edges. So he's been getting to the quarterback. Unfortunate for him, he's not been able to actually get the sacks to get on his name, but he has been forcing QBs to step up in the pocket, to flood the pocket, to get rid of the ball quicker than they would like to. He's been your best edge rusher, which gives you the best chance of getting a solid draft pick in return. And there are certainly a lot of teams that may be interested in Jaelan Phillips. Bleacher Report had him number 4 on their trade big board and listed the Cincinnati Bengals and Dallas Cowboys as the 2 most likely landing spots in the potential trade with Jaelan Phillips. I completely agree on Dallas, by the way. I even had the Cowboys Report host, Tom Downey, DMing me, asking me if I think the Dolphins could actually trade Jaelan Phillips. I responded, yes. The Bengals, I don't know if that makes sense considering they might not be in the playoff hunt with all of their injuries. But I'll throw out another team there. A team that we played in week 1, the Indianapolis Colts. That team is quickly becoming a win-now squad. And if they add another pass rusher to just really fortify that defense, they could be a really big-time contender in the AFC. Now, Bleacher Report has his projected value as a conditional 4th-round pick, which I don't disagree with. A 4th-rounder, so an early day 3 selection that if he meets some snap percentages and production requirements, ultimately gets elevated to a late day 2 pick, a 3rd-rounder. I think that makes a lot of sense for Jaelan Phillips. We're talking about a 26, 27-year-old guy who is looking good coming off of all of his injuries. I like Jaelan Phillips long-term, but I understand why the Dolphins would and should trade him. Drop a name. We got 3 more names to get to here, but who is the most likely player to be traded on the Miami Dolphins? Is it Jaelan Phillips? Is it a different name? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is the number 2 trade candidate on the Miami Dolphins, and I actually don't think it's particularly close. I know there's other couple names out there, which we'll get to, but Minkah is number 2 for me behind Jaelan Phillips. And it has to do with his contract. He's got 2 years left on his deal. $1.2 million base and a $4.5 million cap hit this season. So the team trading for Minkah Fitzpatrick would certainly not take on a lot of money this season, making him an ideal target for a win-now-ball club. But he would also have one more year of him. He has a $15.6 million base and an $18.8 cap hit for next season. That's not that bad for a safety who is still a top 10 safety in the NFL. And if we're going to be honest, he's still playing at that level. You look at his stats through 5 games, he's got 33 tackles, a missed tackle rate of 14.7%, and is actually graded out really highly as the 74.2 overall grade. And he has excelled in coverage this year after the biggest knock on him and the biggest struggle of last season being his coverage ability. This season, only targeted 7 times, has 4 receptions, hasn't allowed a touchdown, only given up 34 yards, had an interception against the Panthers this past week, a PBU, and a QB rating when targeted throughout the first 5 weeks of 30.4. When you look at the long list of issues for this Miami Dolphins defense, Minkah Fitzpatrick is not one of them. He has been solid in coverage. He has been okay in run. I'm not going to act like he's been elite, but he has been very good as a coverage safety, whether it's in zone or having to man up. So I think the list of teams interested in a potential Minkah Fitzpatrick trade are long. I think one of them being the Dallas Cowboys again. And I mentioned it earlier. I had Tom Downey reach out to me about a potential Jaelan Phillips trade. He also reached out to me asking if I think Minkah Fitzpatrick could be traded. But another contender, the Houston Texans, they ultimately moved on from C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I think they could look to add another safety to their room. The Commanders in a win-now mode could look for another safety. There's 2 safeties aren't good. And then the Eagles could also look to add a safety. They have a couple of young guys over there, Reed Blankenship and Andrew Makuba. And I think the Dolphins might actually be able to get a solidified day 2 pick for him. A second rounder? Probably not. But I think you could get a third-round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick. When you look at the trade value that the Dolphins got in return in that Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey trade, they trade away Ramsey and Jonnu plus a late day 3 pick for Minkah in a early day 3 pick. Well, that puts the projected value in that trade for Minkah at about a third rounder, which tells me, based off his play this year, you could still get a third-round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick. So I think he'll certainly get some calls from now until the deadline. It's just all about if Miami wants to ultimately trade him or not. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every single day. The right decisions on PrizePicks can get you paid. There are so many cool features on PrizePicks. One of them is that they're the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Want to pick more on Achane receptions, rushing yards, and touchdowns? Well, now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on PrizePicks. It's the best way to win cash this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones are overhyped? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long on PrizePicks. I did that for week 6. I have less than on Justin Fields passing yards, less than on Dylan Gabriel passing yards, and more than on Deebo Samuel rushing and receiving touchdowns. That's my entry for this week. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. The third trade candidate, in my opinion, around the Miami Dolphins is running back Jaylen Wright, the second-year back out of Tennessee, drafted in the 4th round in 2024. I just think this one's obvious based off where we're at in terms of this running back depth chart. We have 3 running backs, Achane, Ollie Gordon, and Jaylen Wright, with Alec Ingold being that fullback, that H-back, whatever you want to call him. But the point I'm trying to make here is, in Week 5 against Carolina, Jaylen Wright was a healthy inactive. Healthy inactive. There is no point in keeping Jaylen Wright if you're not going to have him active on game days. It's clear that the Dolphins would rather play Ollie Gordon And I don't blame him. He's a better complementary back to Devon Achane because Gordon's 6'2", 250, or 225, I should say, runs well in between the tackles and has improved as a pass blocker. Jaylen Wright's battled injuries, and he didn't look good in the preseason. So there's no point in keeping him. And Bleacher Report actually suggested a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs that would net Miami a 2026 sixth-round pick. I actually think that's a really good landing spot for Jaylen Wright to be in that offense that could use another back in the passing game as well as a speed guy because their running backs, Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, are anything but that. But if Miami could get a day 3 sixth-round pick for Jaylen Wright, I think I would do it because I just don't see him getting a lot of playing time going ahead in the future here with Ollie Gordon continuing to emerge and still having Devon Achane. So I would trade Jaylen Wright for a sixth-round pick. One more trade candidate to get here to in a second, but make sure you subscribe because if any trade ultimately happens, we will have you covered. So make sure you subscribe, join the Dolphins Today family here as we're bringing you daily Dolphins coverage. The fourth trade candidate and final one we're talking about today is another edge rusher, veteran Bradley Chubb. Now, this makes a ton of sense for Miami to trade him because he's a veteran. Yes, he has 3.5 sacks this year, but I don't think he's been that productive. The numbers are a little bit overrated. He has not been that good in generating pressure, and his pass rush win rate isn't that great. But when you look at his financials and the money implications of potentially trading Bradley Chubb, it just actually makes it incredibly unlikely that Miami gets a deal done. And let me explain. When you look at what Miami's dead cap would be if they traded Bradley Chubb this year, they would be paying Bradley Chubb $11.4 million to not play football for them. And if you take it one step further and trade him right now, the Miami Dolphins would have $30.2 million in dead cap next season if they trade him before the deadline. I know this front office is incompetent and really bad, but it would reach another level and be almost like vetoable type of malpractice to take on a $30.2 million dead cap in 2026 to trade Bradley Chubb for a mid to late day 3 pick. Like, Bradley Chubb's trade value is probably a 5th or 6th rounder. You're not taking on $30 million in dead cap for him. But on the flip side, there will be a ton of interest in Bradley Chubb because there is always interest in veteran pass rushers. He has put up 3.5 sacks. And some GMs might be like, oh, he's got 3.5 sacks. But also, if you look at what the team that trades for Bradley Chubb would have to pay him this season and next year, it is little. It's under $1 million what a team would have to pay Bradley Chubb if they traded for him at the deadline this season. Be a little bit different next year, but this season they would pay nothing. So there'd be a ton of interest in Bradley Chubb. But once again, there is no value for Miami to trade Bradley Chubb because of that 2026 dead cap unless they get like a first-round pick out of it. And that's like never going to happen. I have a better chance of winning the Powerball tomorrow than Bradley Chubb being traded for a first-round pick. So I ultimately think Chubb stays on this roster this season. A post-June 1st trade in the offseason could ultimately happen, but he's staying here at least through 2025, in my opinion, due to just the financial implications of it. So those are my top 4 Dolphins trade candidates before the deadline. Phillips 1, Minkah 2, Jaylen Wright 3, and Bradley Chubb numero 4. If I had to make my predictions a month away from the deadline, I think Phillips gets actually traded. I think Minkah stays. Jaylen Wright is dealt. Bradley Chubb stays out of these 4. Maybe there's going to be some other trades that happen. We'll ultimately see. But we'll have you covered with it all. So subscribe today and join the family here at Miami Dolphins Today.